There's a misconception out there that those of us in the minority party have a dislike or disdain or even hatred for immigrants or people who are not American. I see it in the headlines, I see it on social media accounts of several of my colleagues here in the General Assembly. I must adamantly dispel this misconception and encourage all of you to reject this grievous untruth. Disagreement does not equal hatred, and we do a disservice to this institution and to the citizens we represent when we sow division this way. My husband is an immigrant from Guinea, West Africa. My sister-in-law and my nieces and nephews are from Colombia, South America. When I am talking about immigrants, I am talking about my family. This is my family.
This is not an issue about who cares more or less about immigrants. I mean, we all have stories. You know, my grandmother survived 6 years of Allied bombing, right? She did as a young child. She survived 6 years of Allied bombing. And if one of those bombs would have come any closer to her, I wouldn't be here. You know what? I'm not the only one to have a story like this. I'll bet you each and every one of us in this room and in the annex has a similar story. We all care about immigrants. The difference of opinion is not all of us agree on federal law. That's the bottom line in this. That's literally the bottom line. So instead of making these incorrect accusations about any of us, caring more or less about our neighbors, the discussion should be whether or not the majority of us are going to encourage the federal government to change our federal immigration laws. That's the bottom line. If you all really want open borders and you don't agree with the immigration law, and we want to continue to pass bills that are in conflict and aren't consistent with federal law, and the floor leader actually acknowledged that this bill is not consistent with federal law, then we should encourage them to change the law. We should, but we're not doing that. Instead, we're passing bills that aren't consistent. That's the argument that we're making here. That's the only argument that we're making. We don't agree with passing laws that aren't consistent with federal law. We care about the same people you guys care about. So I would fairly strongly encourage folks to not make these high-flying accusations that are absolutely, absolutely untrue. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You know, I would like to share my story with you. I was born and raised in Lebanon. I grew up in Beirut. I witnessed car bombs, I witnessed missiles, I witnessed limbs on the street, I witnessed horrible things. And as a 19-year-old, I was given the opportunity to come to the United States. And I remember, as I was walking up the steps of that plane, as I looked at my hometown, and I wonder if I'll ever see it again, or what's in store for me, whether I'm gonna succeed, fail. And as a young boy, it was terrifying, it was scary. I got on that plane, and the only thing that put my mind at ease was that I was coming to the land of opportunity. I was coming to the land of the free. I came here in search of life, better life, happiness, and freedom, and most importantly, safety. I came here searching for the dream that one of the main reasons that I decided to run for office was to give back to the country and the state that has given me everything I have. You see, I'm not anti-immigrants. I just believe that we should come here the right way. And if we continue to give people that break the law, that are here illegally, it's a slap in the face to every single immigrant that comes here legally. And unfortunately, we try to put our amendment, we try to put a lipstick on a pig, unfortunately, and every single amendment that would have made it safer to really address the issue at hand, to give people that are here legally, was shot down. I will be voting no. And as a proud American, I will be voting against this bill. And I encourage everyone to vote against it. Thank you.
But many immigrants, just like my husband, come here and they are not asking us for anything extra besides the chance that they are getting. Nothing. I have many friends who have been, over the years, of varying visa statuses. I love them all dearly. I respect them. I appreciate that they have made a financial decision to come to this country, even though they may not have all of the appropriate documentation to do so, because they still are believing that this country offers something, even with the risk they know they are taking. I support this amendment. I understand that there will be a small increase in the cost. I think preventing fraud will far outweigh whatever the cost is to mail a check. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to mention, I know I spoke about my dashing husband a minute ago. He is an accountant. We do a lot of accounting for small businesses and for individuals, many of whom are immigrants of varying status. So I'm extremely familiar with the ITIN process and the types of situations that those involve. There is a beacon over the state of Maryland that says, come here and get a driver's license. We get calls every year from people outside of this state who want to come here to get a driver's license, and they do so with great frequency. They do not live here. They have an address that many will use the same address over and over again. One of my constituents, her mailbox was used repeatedly over a decade by people who are in this country and do not have permission to be here. It is terrible for the victims of these crimes, by the way. Her mail was stolen every week, every month for years because of this. And they established their residency here. But now in Maryland, you don't even have to have your mail sent to that mailbox. You can pick a P.O. box. This is not a complicated amendment. This is not an amendment to be disparaging towards my friends who are here, who do not have the appropriate documentation to be here. This is to simply say, you must send the check to a Maryland residence. The idea behind these types of financial incentives are that people will spend the money in our economy, rebuilding what the government has decimated over the last 11 months. People who do not reside in the state of Maryland should not be getting our money.
And maybe we should look at our immigration policies. But there's an unintended consequence when we continue to encourage and incentivize this. Every one of us, if we're honest with ourselves, has read what happens to some of these vulnerable children and women as they're coming across the border. I just happened to look it up. In Maryland, human trafficking, 3.0 per 100,000. BWI is one of the most trafficked airports in the country. That's sad to me. 63% of those people of Hispanic background. Those you want to talk about loving? What makes them vulnerable? Number one, if nobody really knows they're here. Their families know, of course. But if we don't know, that makes them really vulnerable. I encourage you, go talk to law enforcement. They see it. These gangs, they prey on them because nobody knows you're here. And if we continue, last year I stood on the floor. It's not because I don't love these people. It's because I do love them. I wish they could come here legally. I love the stories. That's what makes us great. But when we encourage these kinds of things and we want to look the other way at the atrocities and the pain and the horrors that these people go through, we have to take responsibility too, don't we? Because it's horrible. There's atrocities. It's sickening. We have to stop encouraging this. Last year I stood on the floor and did the same thing, not because I don't think they should be going to college, but we shouldn't be encouraging them with free tuition. And now we're giving out free money.
And what have we done for those who are in the least economically productive time in their lives? What are we doing for those in their golden years who, by nature, have more health-related concerns? What are we doing for those who, by nature, are on fixed incomes? We are doing absolutely nothing. I have brought this issue to the legislature for the last 2 years, and each time I have advocated that we need to do something to help lifelong Marylanders retire near their friends and family. Retire where they were born. retire in the place that they have lived their entire lives. I have advocated that it's a matter of fairness that we do what most other states do and eliminate the taxation of retirement income. Every time I have been confronted with the same excuses as to why we can't do that. Well, that will cost the state money. It's just too expensive. And then this body turns around and uses the same exact arguments that I use for retirees to give tax benefits to those who have recently immigrated to our country, and yes, to those who are here illegally.